Up next, we have Josh from Fairshake and Veronica from Unchained to discuss how crypto won the election. Enjoy.
Yes, so that goes to you.
Is this thing on? Yep. All right. Hi there. My name is Veronica Irwin, and I'm the regulatory reporter at Unchained. And I'm here with Josh Vlasto, spokesman for Fairshake. Just for a little bit of context, Josh Vlasto has had a long career in politics and communications. Before being at Fairshake, he served as the press secretary for Senator Chuck Schumer. He was chief of staff for Andrew Cuomo, and also did corporate communications for the likes of Ron Perlman and McAndrews and Forbes. For a little bit of context on Fairshake, if anybody doesn't happen to know who they are, they are a PAC that was very involved in the November election. Candidates that Fairshake invested in won 85% of the time in the November general election, and Fairshake spent over $139 million in November.
That's correct. Thanks so much, Veronica. It's great to be here. It's great to meet everybody.
Yeah. So I think just to start, I think a lot of people generally, a lot of people in crypto were amazed at the amount of money that Fairshake raised, and I guess how much crypto won, to use the title of this talk, in the November election. Was any of that a surprise to Fairshake?
No, I wouldn't say it was a surprise. And first of all, it's great to be here. It's great to be among, so many smart developers who are on the cutting edge of the next wave of the crypto economy. It's something, for those of us on the political side, we're deeply committed to supporting. But, I don't think it was a surprise because the donors and our leadership, really coalesced around a cohesive strategy. And everybody was aligned, everybody was on the same page going in right from the beginning, and they knew they had to go big in order to have an immediate impact. And if you look at the trajectory, even going back to October 2023, when our leadership became public that they were making such a significant investment, there was clear response from the political class, from members of Congress, from the media, that this was now, that crypto and blockchain had a serious political organization that was going to be a major factor in 2024.
I think what is partly so interesting to me was also Fairshake's strategy. It wasn't just investing in politicians that were pro-crypto, but it was also kind of supporting them in a way without always mentioning crypto directly. This was covered a lot by Politico, and its article headlined, "Crypto has quietly become one of the biggest electoral players," where they talked about how Fairshake was funding a lot of advertisements that kind of were tailored to the region where that politician was, and didn't necessarily focus just on their stance on crypto. Why did Fairshake take that strategy?
It's a good question, and you have to go back to the foundational strategy. Our mission at Fairshake was to support and elect members of Congress who are pro-crypto and oppose members of Congress that were opposed to crypto and blockchain, anti-innovation, played politics with modern financial services. So we had a clear rubric. If you were pro-crypto and blockchain, we'd support you and help you win. If you were anti, we would oppose you. And so in order to execute that strategy, we tailored our message and the ads message and the in-state political strategy to match what would have an impact on the race. So it's standard for PACs, regardless of what political ideology they are or what issue they're working on, that if you want to have an impact on a particular Senate race, for example in Ohio with Sherrod Brown, you want to talk about what's going to make the candidate you support successful, regardless of what your own agenda is. And each race that we engaged in, the dozens in the House and the 3 in the Senate in the general election, total of 10 across the entire cycle, we really did in-depth research to look at what would have an impact, so our preferred candidate would win.
Speaking of Sherrod Brown, that was the campaign that you invested the most money into. I believe
Correct.
It was about $40 million. I think a lot of people that are not super engaged in politics kind of look at that and get maybe a little bit uncomfortable about just the amount of money that's in politics these days. I think when I've been speaking at to crypto people at this conference, there's a lot of people that are, I don't know, maybe a little bit like they don't want to get engaged in politics or think it's a little bit dirty maybe sometimes. Can you explain like why it's important for crypto to take on that strategy of really, really investing a lot of money in these campaigns?
So it's a great question, and we get it all the time. What my answer to that is, if the industry that you are working in, or if you're an investor that you're investing in, wants to serve the broader public, have a mass consumer base, be accepted as part of the mainstream future of financial services, that comes with scrutiny from government, and it comes with being impacted by the discourse around public policy. And industries that have chosen to avoid it can only avoid it so long before they become marginalized. And so many people at this conference, so many people across the entire crypto and blockchain ecosystem are eager to grow their businesses, go mainstream, and with that comes interacting with government and public policy. And I think the industry was so smart to make this significant investment because now they're going to have a place at the table in order to shape that policy. Right? One of the key things that the leadership of Fairshake, the individual donors, our leader donors, Coinbase, Andreessen, and Ripple, clearly set out for us was that we were not opposed to regulation. We wanted to see Congress take action to pass smart, responsible regulation that could allow this industry to grow. And so now, given the success of Fairshake, given the success of the other companies that participated in the political process like last cycle, we have a Congress and an administration that wants to make America the leader in crypto and blockchain. And that's going to be a really exciting process to participate in. Had crypto not made those investments, they would not have a place at the table right now shaping their future.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely see that the regulatory environment has changed so drastically, even since I started on this beat in October. Difference between then and now is pretty wild to see. I think another part also about Stand With Crypto's strategy, or Fairshake's strategy, that I kind of want to focus on is that it's nonpartisan, right? You're supporting Democrats and Republicans. But the PAC has received some criticism that it funds Democrats more often in districts that are solidly blue, while supporting Republicans more in swing states, and Republicans were given more money just overall in this last cycle than Democrats. This was covered a little bit in the New Yorker, where there was a donor, Ron Conway, also the venture capitalist, who was pretty upset about this and some emails that were leaked. What is Fairshake's response to that criticism?
So I think universally in politics, there is no Democrat who thinks you shouldn't spend more on Democrats and less on Republicans, and there is no Republican that thinks that you shouldn't spend more on Republicans and less on Democrats. So that was a discourse and a debate that occurred the entire cycle. We had that in California, where they said, well, you should have invested more in specific Democrats in California. And we said, well, we're running a national strategy. We're not running a California strategy. So everybody in politics always wants their side to get more and the other side to get less. One of the reasons I think Fairshake was so successful was we stuck to our strategy, which was we are going to support crypto supporters and oppose crypto opponents, regardless of party, regardless of whether they're an incumbent or a challenger, regardless of whether they're in the House or the Senate, with the goal, and this is what's really important for people here, of building a long-term sustainable coalition around advancing crypto and blockchain ecosystem in the United States. That's the goal, not incremental political victories, but a long-term sustainable coalition that can support this industry and its policy agenda. Far too many industries pick a side and then become marginalized when that particular side is out of power. We want people who really embrace the industry, believe in its future, and want to work with people here and the major companies to make sure that America is the leader going forward. And I believe we have built that. We have over 300 some odd pro-crypto members across the House and the Senate. That was unthinkable 2 years ago.
And to be fair, too, I kind of want to look at this from both sides of the political aisle. I think that article in the New Yorker also talked about how there were some Republicans that expressed frustration, I guess, that Fairshake wasn't picking a side. and that Fairshake wasn't totally going in on just the Republican Party. I think that also kind of draws attention to the fact that I guess earlier this month, Axios reported that there were two, pro-crypto GOP-specific PACs. So what is your argument going forward for future elections that the right strategy for crypto is to stay nonpartisan?
Well, what I would argue for the crypto industry and blockchain industry to do is to stay unified and stay focused. Stay focused on the policy agenda, right? We have real momentum in this Congress, in this administration, right? Real unanimity to get policy done this year. Unprecedented for this industry. So I would just encourage everyone, stay unified, stay focused. That being said, there are going to be a lot of people across this industry investing in political candidates and political causes that they care about. That's great. The more engagement, the better. But at the same time, this is a long-term agenda and a long-term strategy. So I would encourage people to stay unified, continue to focus on supporting candidates that will advance the agenda that helps all the people here build their businesses.
And I mean, that's a good layup for the next question I was going to ask. Just Fairshake has accumulated, correct me if I'm wrong, but $116 million already for the 2026 midterms. In general, my assumption or my understanding is that midterms aren't quite as expensive as the general election, so that's really a lot of money in context of that. And with more than a year to go, I've talked to some sources that are speculating Fairshake could raise even more money than the $169 million that it raised for the 2024 general election. That's also interesting because the crypto industry is expected to have a lot of pretty big victories pretty quickly. We already have members of Congress talking about stablecoin legislation, market structure legislation. There's the CRA bill. We already turned over SAB 121. So, assuming that the industry gets what's on its wish list, what is all that money for? What are the problems that Fairshake is, expected to hope address in the 2026 midterms or even after that?
It's a great question. I'll take a quick step back, which is, I take the amount of money that Fairshake has raised going into the next cycle as a real sign of the success of the previous cycle. The major commitments from Coinbase, Andreessen, and Ripple, were announced prior to the election. So those commitments were made before those supporters knew the outcome of the election. That's how confident I think the industry was that our strategy was working in paving that path for long-term success. I think what you also said is exactly right, which is we have real momentum going into this Congress. You see Democrats, Ruben Gallego being the ranking member on the crypto assets subcommittee on banking in the Senate, really talking about working with the Republicans to get things done is really important. Certainly the Republicans are taking the lead right now. They are running Congress. They are deeply committed to it and are really making progress. It's quite impressive. I think the one thing I would say is we're formulating our strategy now. It's a long time before the primaries next year, but the entire industry is watching very closely. We are watching to make sure that the members that this industry supported are fulfilling the commitments they made to the public and to the voters to advance this agenda, to bring real responsible regulation and market structure towards in and around crypto and blockchain. And so it's too early for us to telegraph what we're going to do, but what I can tell you is we're watching this all very closely. This is the country and the voters were clear that they want crypto and blockchain as part of the financial services ecosystem going forward. And the administration and Congress seem committed to following through on it.
Is there a fundraising goal for the 2026 midterms?
Well, so I don't think there's a specific number, and I'm the mere spokesperson. But what I'll tell you is this is an industry that really saw the ROI when it comes to an investment in a strong, thoughtful, sophisticated political strategy. And so I have confidence that Fairshake and all the other key players will have the resources they need going into next year and beyond to ensure that this coalition, this bipartisan coalition, continues to build. And that would be my advice, by the way, for everybody who's here, right, who's looking to really build out their projects and their platforms and their customer bases, right? Start thinking now about how you're going to operate in a regulatory environment. Start thinking now about what your political and public affairs strategy is, what your communication strategy is. Because with this level of exposure and this level of policy success is going to come continued scrutiny. And the more you're prepared for that, the more successful you'll be. If you look at fintech in particular, that went through such a disruption after Silicon Valley Bank, the companies and the startups that survived were the ones who invested in compliance, public affairs, and thoughtful communications. And now they are benefiting from extraordinary tailwinds from the outcome of the election. And so I think the people here can really look to that as an example of working with people and thinking about a thoughtful political strategy so you're ready for the future.
And on that, you're almost beating me to my last question, but just for the people that are listening, I think a lot of people are probably listening to this and saying, well, I can't give money in the amount that Andreessen or Coinbase is giving. But how can everyday crypto people, developers, builders get involved in Fairshake and the success that Fairshake has brought to the industry?
Look, and we were chatting about this before we came on. The companies across the spectrum, not only the three leaders, but the more than a dozen companies that made that initial investment really set the tone. And obviously, a lot of people in this room don't have those kind of resources. But what I'll tell you is there are a lot of organizations out there that are deeply, deeply committed to advancing this policy agenda. And I would encourage you to work with them, whether it's the Cedar Innovation Foundation, the Blockchain Association, the Digital Chamber of Commerce. These are advocacy groups that are really committed to being your representatives in Washington. And it doesn't either take a lot of money, it doesn't take even sometimes any money to engage with them, be supportive of their efforts, give them feedback on the policy agenda, because they are out there working for you. And so yes, the significant resources are in Fairshake, but there are lots of different grassroots efforts to engage your employees, whether it's through Stand With Crypto, whether it's to engage the communities in which you're building your businesses. But I would really engage in the political process in a thoughtful way. Don't just tweet things. Get involved. Talk to these groups. Hire good GR people, right? Hire good compliance people who can advise your leadership on the best path forward.
Awesome. Well, I think we can leave it there. Thank you so much.
This was a pleasure, Veronica. Thank you so much, and thank you for everything you do at Unchained. The Unchained is just an unquestioned, reputable resource for really firsthand knowledge on what's going on in Washington and the regulatory structures. So thank you for everything you do, and thanks for having me here.
Well, thank you so much.